Welcome back to the ShodCast Season 4. With me is Matt McKenney and Mike Height. How you doing, boys?
Doing great, thanks. How are you?
Good. How was the draft experience for the both of you guys? Any key takeaways?
Don't sit on the side of the porch with the sun at your back, I think would be my biggest takeaway from the draft, because you'll end up walking around with a towel on your head or using a outdoor furniture cover to shield yourself from the sun.
Yeah, looking back on the post there, it said that there was ample shade spots. That proved to be false.
I would say room for 11 of 14 show members. I would say that's ample.
And then I saw something about a boat too that also proved to be incorrect. It was interesting that we stayed on a lake but never experienced the lake.
So the boat exists. That wasn't a lie.
There is a boat, but no one actually saw proof of the boat this weekend.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. So we're going to go over the the bottom 7 teams today. Starting off at team number 14 is Make the Show Great Again. Is that popped up for you guys?
It is now.
All right. So, whoops.
Oh, spoiler alert.
It's not letting me. There we go. All right. So, Mick, why don't you start us off, and what made you put Fume at number 14?
I think this is just kind of a rather uninspiring roster. There wasn't a lot that excited me here about this team. There's some solid players. I think Trevor Lawrence is a good pick. Even as a QB1 is not a bad option. I think, he overpaid for him at this, at that spot. I'd like to see him maybe like closer to the low 40s, or I guess maybe even the high 30s, especially, if you're going to be trying to, kind of spread out your talent. There's really nobody here that just the only guy I'm looking at here that pops off is Kyle Pitts, and I think he's obviously a gamble. I thought Bryce Young was a good pick at $15, but I also think there's some question marks about him. Just kind of out on a lot of these guys, ETN, Kirk. I would have rather seen, honestly, you could have spent the same amount of money and got Ridley and Bigsby, and I'd have been much, much, much more excited about that. Cooks I like at $6. I just don't love this team.
You also had them ranked at 14. What led you into putting them into last place as well?
Well, I tried to keep my disdain for Simpson's brother-in-law out of my ranking because he kept stealing all the players that I wanted for the draft. Namely Christian Watson, who I think is my favorite part of this team. I think Watson has a ton of upside this year. I think I expect more out of Bryce Love this year or Jordan Love than most people. But I don't know. I don't really see much with this team. I think Lawrence is going to be pretty good. If he keeps the rushing aspect of his game involved, second year in the system with Peterson, I think they're going to be better. I don't know that I want to go like full on Jag stack like Make Show Great Again did here. I don't really expect much out of Brandon Cooks. I think Pitts is just okay. I think Atlanta's going to be a really bad team. I think the only highlight of their team is going to be
Bijan Robinson.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. I don't really expect much out of the Carolina offense, so I don't think Young's going to be very good. And Lockett, Smith and Jigba, it sounds like he's already practicing again, so I think he's really not going to get that many targets. On the bench, I think Swift could actually be a steal for $5 if he can stay healthy. I think he can be a dynamic playmaker for the Eagles. And I think Johnston could also be pretty good. If you can get past Palmer, it sounds like he's behind him right now on the depth chart. So I don't know. There's pieces there. To me, it really just lacks that high end talent. And so I have some real concerns about this team.
Yeah, a lot of money spent on the bench there that could have been used towards the starters. But let's move on to team number 13. And Height, since you just went, let's go ahead and have you break down our team number 13.
So I never like to insult our fearless leader, but I have no choice.
I love to.
With this draft here. I don't know. I don't really think the Browns will be very good. I'm down on their entire offense, to be honest. So Deshaun Watson, just okay. I don't really have much expectation for Madison. He's never really done it. I don't think he's ever taken more than 50% of the snaps on his team over a 2-game period. So I don't know. Expecting him to just come and be an absolute bell cow this year, I don't really see it. Waddle obviously doing great. Lamb, I think he's going to be fine. Again, it's not an offense. Just Mike McCarthy, I think, really puts a ceiling on any offense just because he's such a horrible coach. Kenny Pickett, I actually like that pick. $23. He's looked very good in the preseason. I think he's going to take a big step this year. With Pickens and
Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm coming off of a 13-hour workday. Deontay Johnson. Freiermuth. I think that offense is going to actually surprise a lot of people this year. So I do like that pick. London, again, I don't expect much out of the Falcons offense. And then on his bench, I just really don't see much. Congratulations to Mac Jones to, having Bailey Zappi be not make the roster and then end up on the practice squad. So it sounds like his spot is safe. But that's all I have to say about that team.
Mick, you also ranked this team number 13. So what do you have to say about the commission's team here?
Yeah, it pains me to do so. It's actually funny. I think, I like the opposite of what Mike likes and don't like the opposite of what Mike. It's just kind of like we're flip-flopped on what we don't like. I actually think this is one of my least favorite quarterback rooms in the show. I'm also kind of out on Watson this year. I don't think the Browns are going to be an awful team, but I don't think they're going to be special, and I don't think Watson's going to be sniffing the elite status for quarterbacks. So, I think he and Pickett as a combination, spending more than $60 on those two, doesn't excite me. I'm not as big on Pickett. I don't love it. I actually like Njoku. I think he's going to get targeted by Watson. And I think Elijah Moore kind of fits well as kind of a long shot in case the Browns do go off. Also not huge on Madison. I just kind of they're a passing offense, and Madison's not. Doesn't seem like he's a special player. So, he's in a good offense, which is good for him. I just don't think his target share is going to be very high. And, they're going to be kind of using him as kind of in a plug role, I think. So I don't love his upside. I actually like the receiver room here. CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle. I like Drake London. I think that's probably the bright spot of this roster. Rashad White, their offensive line is terrible, and he may be ceding some carries to that kid from Syracuse, Tucker. Or is it Tucker or Turner or whatever it was? So, yeah, I'm not really too sure. I guess there are some bench guys I like. Mac Jones for $6 is solid. Getting a starting quarterback for that price I think is great. There's a couple long shot guys, Charbonnet and Rice and Ty Chandler, A-Chain, a few guys there, but just I don't think there's enough here for me to get excited about the team.
Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Rob's spelling on many of these names.
I'm sure that will continue, especially when we're looking at the late bench, because that's when the beers really start flowing there. So number 12, we have Fat Jim's. Mick, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I love the stack of Burrow and Chase. I think that was a great way to start the draft, but there are some concerns beyond that. I don't really love the roster behind those two players. Breece Hall, it's been well documented that I don't like players coming off of ACL injuries, and he's exactly that. They've drafted a running back. They've signed a running back. Doesn't really seem like they're going to need to rely on him as much. Debo, I think, is a wild card player. He spent a moderate amount of money on him, so I don't think it hurts him that bad. But McLaurin, I think, may actually be the second best receiver in this offense. Hopkins is washed. Just beyond the Burrow Chase stack, I really just don't love this roster.
Height, you had this team ranked number 10, so not as low as Mick here. What did you maybe see to put him there, or on average put him at 12?
I expressed my concerns to Neil on Saturday. A big part of it is just the lack of starting talent on this team, and just a lot of guys that are already injured before the season even starts, which is never a good sign. Hall has already stated that he doesn't feel all the way back from last year. He's not comfortable making cuts. Debo, I don't think we're ever going to see the Debo from 2 years ago, where he was getting all kinds of rushing attempts, especially with McCaffrey there. So I don't think we're ever going to see that peak Debo again. McLaurin's got the turf toe thing going on. Those tend to linger for a really long time if you don't let it heal. I don't like Hopkins whatsoever. I think it's gonna be a really bad offense. I think Burks is probably before midway through the season is going to establish himself as number one. So, and then Baker, he ruined two teams last year, which is pretty impressive to do. I don't expect that to change in Tampa. I think at some point in time they're going to give Kyle Trask a chance. So I think Neil picked up Josh Dobbs today. Not really somebody that you want to be relying on at any point in your season. So I have my concerns.
I love that you just keep forgetting names here.
I feel like I get on a roll and then I just come to a name and I just completely blank. So
one name per team so far, but we are actually flying through this at right around 3 minutes per team. So let's move on.
Perfect.
Height. Let's lead us off with New World Order. This was a team that you ranked number 12, but 11 on the ShodCast Power Rankings.
Well, I had NWO with my 8 team, but.
I'm sorry. That is true.
Yeah. At the high end, we got some real winners here. Hurts obviously is a great fit. Pollard, I'm not as high as most people are on him, but I still think he's gonna be very good. AJ Brown is a tank, and that's a great stack to have. I don't mind Geno. I think he's gonna be pretty good. I think with Smith and Jigba added to the receiver room, I think they're going to be a good team. I don't really think they're going to have a great run game, so I think they're going to be throwing a lot. And then it just kind of falls off from there. I don't like Amari Cooper. I talked about how I felt about Watson. Trey McBride, I just think the Cardinals are – Brandon obviously didn't care. He paid $1 for a starting tight end. I think the Cardinals are going to be a train wreck. I think they're trying to tank. They may win. I think the line right now is 4.5. I think the under is getting pounded. So Ayuk, a real talent there. But I just think, there's so many mouths to feed in that offense. It's going to be tough for him to really produce. Marquise Brown, same boat as McBride. Josh Dobbs is probably throwing the football. Your upside is very much curbed by that. And then just guys to back him up. there's really not much there. Marvin Mims is probably the highlight. If Judy's injury lasts for a while, he might get a lot of playing time. He's kind of an electric player. I think he ran like a 4.3 40. So there's definitely some upside, really with Mims. Not really much else. Maybe Puka Nacua, but I think that's about it.
Mick, what do you feel about this team? So you're right height. You had him at 8. Mick, you had him at 12, but still came in at 11 for the power rankings here.
Yeah, well, I love Hurts. I mean, I really enjoyed having him on my team last year. I think that's a good pick. I think he's worth the money. But I do worry a little bit about A.J. Brown, the volume there. He is a boomer bust player to some degree. I don't know if he really gets the target share, and they do seem to want to run the ball a lot, and a lot of that is coming from Hurts, which makes him attractive. But when you're stacking Philly players and spending a lot of money to do so, and basically he spent half of his money on Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and the Hurts part of that I think is great. The A.J. Brown part I think carries with it some risk. Pollard, I have a little bit of skepticism about how he's going to be utilized. I think he was really refreshing when he was coming in, as a spell for Ezekiel Elliott. But I don't know. Some of the coach speak that's coming through from Dallas is a little bit weird, and it seems to me like he is a smaller back, carrying the load, getting 20 touches a game seems a little bit unrealistic. I mean, if they really can involve in the passing game and get him, 8 targets a game, I'm probably going to be, going back on what I'm saying here. But I just feel like Pollard is a little bit risky. But $34 isn't going to kill him. Cooper, I don't hate him, but I also don't think he's special. Ayuk I like, Brown I hate. Couldn't hate Brown more, actually. I think it's a terrible pick. And then the bench is boring. I agree with Mike that Mims does carry some upside, but aside from that, I mean, it's bad. So, yeah, I mean, I like Hurts. But that's about it.
All right, let's take us to the 10th team then with Fuel the Rush. This is a team that you had ranked at 11. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is, I mean, everybody's kind of darling during the draft because Rob seemed to be scooping up value the entire time and getting players for, low cost. But I just don't really love any of these guys. I mean, I don't love Dak. I don't love Ramondre. T. Higgins is playing second fiddle. Judy's hurt. Kittle overproduced last year in several games, ended up being like a top tight end because he had these boom games, but had plenty of games where he had less than 30 yards receiving. I mean, Purdy, he's kind of injured. I mean, is he even good? We don't know that yet. Henry's offensive line is terrible. He's also like 40 years old. I mean, Josh Jacobs, I'm honestly probably the best pick here because he got him for $22. But I just, it's so boring. This is like a roster that I would expect to come from, I don't know, just the most boring, mundane person ever. This is just like, doesn't fit like the Feel the Rush roster that I'm used to with like the really good receivers like the Tyreek Hills and the Devontae Adams and all these guys. Like T. Higgins is his number one receiver. He's fine, but he's not elite by any stretch. So it's weird for me. Don't love his team. He won't make the playoffs this year.
Hi, you said that he is at 7, so you think he's on the cuffs there. So yeah. What do you see that Mick doesn't?
Well, I have to say that I'm shocked that Matt doesn't like this team, given the number of running backs on it, because that's his MO.
They're bad running backs.
They were good at one time. But, yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Matt said. Purdy, is he good? Is he just like, flourishing in the Shanahan offense and able to really just follow directions, which I don't think Trey Lance was able to. That's probably why they let him go. Yeah, I mean, Jacobs for 22 is like great value. The numbers show that when a guy touches the ball like over 250 times, something like that, like the drop off the next season is pretty immense. So that's obviously concerning. I agree on the receivers. Higgins, he's second fiddle. Judy's already hurt. I know I loved Ramondre last year. I just, I think he's gonna be fine. And then on his bench, like Pickens is probably he's gonna be good for like those highlight, mossing guys down the sideline plays, but he's not like gonna be like a consistent fantasy producer. So yeah, I don't really see it with this team. I may have ranked them a little too high. I think they'll be fine. Like I think they'll they have like okay guys pretty much at every position. If Judy can get, or like Pickens is probably filling for Judy while he's out. And I think they'll be okay. But like this is never going to be like a team that's going to like, beat you down and put up 150 points.
All right. Let's move on to team number 9, which is mine with the real Ed Kilgore. Go ahead, Height.
Where did I have you? Right around there.
Yeah, you had him at 10.
Yeah, I'm at 10. I on the high end, there's a lot of pieces of this team that I honestly like. I would have had you much higher if you had a second quarterback. I love Fields, Bijan. When I can remember his name, I think he's great. The Falcons showed last year that it doesn't really matter who's in the backfield. Like they're gonna produce with that line, the run scheme. And when you have a talent like Bijan Robinson back there, like I think it's going to lead to good things. I think their passing game and Ritter are going to be not good, but I think they'll be able to run the ball. Amon-Ra, like I was in there bidding with it almost the entire time. Like I wanted him on my team. I think he's going to be a PPR monster. With Jameson suspended the first 7 games. I don't know if this guy's ever going to get his act together. Like I honestly think he may be like one of those all-time bust guys, the way that his career trajectory is going right now. So I think he's going to gobble up targets. I think he's going to score more touchdowns this year. He got tackled inside the 5, I don't remember, some outrageous number last season. So I think there's going to be some positive regression. Addison, I like. He's kind of filling into that Thielen role with way more athleticism. So that could be big time. And obviously all the attention is going to be on Jefferson. So I think he's going to get some pretty easy targets. I love Goddard. He was kind of my backup plan if I didn't get Andrews. The guy just in a position as barren as tight end, the guy's just consistent. He doesn't score a ton of touchdowns, but he gets a consistent amount of targets every week. He's good for 10 to 12 points. Pretty much guaranteed. If he throws a touchdown or he gets a touchdown in there, you're very happy with the outcome. So, Kyler, I think there's a very real chance that he just doesn't play at all this season. Algier, whatever. And then on your bench, I really don't have much for you, I guess.
Mick, what do you think? This is a team that you ranked at 6, and not as low as Height.
Yeah, I'd have had him higher. I think Mike said it well when he said that there's real concern that Kyler Murray may not play this year. I think that's a real possibility. I would have had this team even higher than 6 probably had it not been for that problem. I actually really, really like the top-end talent on this team. I think it's probably one of the best in the league. Fields, Bijan, Amon-Ra, Addison. I mean, that's a stellar start right there. I would have liked to see maybe a few less dollars on Goddard. Maybe could have upgraded at another position or something like that. Would have liked, maybe getting a bargain quarterback instead of spending extra money on Kyler. But that's being a little nitpicky. I do think Algier has some standalone value. I think they're going to use him a little bit. I think that, the Falcons are going to have a really good running offense, like Mike said, and there may be weeks where you can actually start both of those guys potentially, but I'm actually not as down on the bench as Mike is. I mean, I think Elijah Mitchell's probably the best handcuff in the league. If anything happens to McCaffrey, he's got a pretty colorful injury history, and he could step in and be like, a top 10 back immediately if McCaffrey gets hurt. And to get him for $2 is a steal.
Mitchell has just as bad of an injury history, if not worse, but
it's true.
Yeah, but I mean, still, like Elijah Mitchell has shown that he can be, a very good, solid fantasy producer.
Sure.
Ingram had a great year last year. I mean, it's two good tight ends. I mean, you could honestly argue to flex Ingram in there. I like Montgomery, especially at $3. I know Mike's not a big Montgomery guy, but he's a pretty talented player. He can kind of do everything. He can run the ball between the tackles. He can catch passes. He's not a terrible athlete. And Detroit's shown that they're comfortable using two running backs. So I think he's actually a pretty good player. Like, is he going to score you like 25 points a week? No, but you can get your 10, 12 points out of him, and that's all you need with these top end guys. So I actually really like this team a lot.
Moving on to the last team for this episode is the Rusty Truckers. Let's go ahead and we'll start with height on this one.
So Matt can have his rebuttal.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some strong pieces to this team. I had the Truckers at 6. There's obviously some real concerns. Once we get past the top end talent, it kind of drops off pretty quick, which I think is kind of like pretty true for just about every team. I love Lamar. I think he's going to have a really great bounce back season after kind of a shitty season last year. JT, I think that's going to be a just absolute waste of $17. I mean, I understand taking the shot for it, but I think he's kind of going to be in the Kyler boat. I think he's going to sit out the entire year. Cooper Kupp, I mean, that could end up being an absolute steal for $49. Like, he could very easily be the number one player in fantasy. The Rams don't really have much else, so he may just get 15 targets a game. And they're really not a good team, so they may be passing the ball a lot and playing a lot of catch up. So who knows? Olave, another guy that I was in on pretty much to the bitter end. $37, a little bit more than I was looking to spend, so I let him go. But I think he's going to be an absolute monster. We've seen that Derek Carr has no problem picking a favorite wide receiver and just like peppering him with targets. I think the Saints are actually going to be pretty good this year. I think he's going to be a big part of it. So I really like that pick. Irv Smith, whatever. Richardson, I think he might run for 1,000 yards this year. Who knows? Like, he may be their only run game. And if you can get a quarterback running for anywhere near 1,000 yards, and even if he only throws for 2,500, like, I still think he's going to be really great value at $30. Beyond that, I don't really love the Washington run game. Roshan is interesting. He could very well take over the number one spot in Chicago. P. Ryan, somebody has the Javante, could be a really good pick. Chico Okonkwo, like, if anything happens to either of those two, Treylon, or Hopkins, like, I think he could be easily the number 2 target getter in Tennessee. And then beyond that, Kareem Hunt, who knows? He may end up being the starting running back for the Colts. He visited with them earlier this summer, walked away without a deal, but if JT sort of ends up where I think his season's going, they may bring him back.
Mick, you final words here for your team here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the Taylor gamble didn't pay off. I thought that he was going to be traded. And that didn't happen. Not only was he not traded, but they put him on the PUP. So, I would have had my team a lot higher. What did I rank myself? 9. I think I would have ranked my team quite a bit higher if Taylor had, been traded. So that's obviously disappointing. But I did kind of formulate the back end of my draft with some kind of a backup plan for, the running back situation. I don't love Brian Robinson Jr., but I do think there's some volume there. I got a couple of good young backs I like a lot. Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, those guys are, have some upside, and I spent $2 on them. P. Ryan, again, we've talked about, ACL injuries, and in this circumstance, posterior lateral corner injury, which is a quite significant injury that Javonte Williams had. So I think P. Ryan, could end up being the guy all year. He can catch passes. He's not super athletic, but he's pretty solid. And then, Mike mentioned Kareem in this situation, but I think that Hunt may end up being the running back for the Colts. So, we'll have to see. If something can be ironed out with Taylor, or he gets traded or something like that, I think this is probably a playoff team. If not, then it's going to be uphill probably the whole way.
Yeah, I don't know if a trade looks likely with what they were trying to fetch for him in that rumor mill. Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to
Here's
discuss?
the thing, really quick, because this is such big news with Taylor and everything. You also have to remember, if Taylor doesn't play a certain number of games this year, his rookie contract rolls over to next year. So basically, he's going to have to wait another year to get paid. So either way, he's going to have to play some.
Wait, even if he's out for injury?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's incentives for him to play. Are you going to get? Well, here's the other thing too. Like, if you're looking to get a contract, whether it's from the Colts or another team, you need to be able to show you can play. You need to be able to show you got to earn your money. You got to prove to other teams that you're worth it. Right now, he's kind of pouting about the fact that he's not getting paid, and it does kind of stink the way running backs are set up, because they, their best seasons are when they're rookie, second, third-year players. When these guys are getting paid rookie deals and not making any money, by the time they're done with the rookie contracts, they're basically out of the league, or they're, basically backup running backs. So, they're not getting paid at the right times. But it's not their fault that that's happening. But at the same time, the structure of the league is right now, like, why would these teams pay these players? Like, it's just doesn't make any sense for them to spend a ton of money on a running back who's 26, 27 years old, when they could just draft a guy and get the same production or better. Even for an elite player like Taylor, he's awesome, but, is he worth the money? That's a good question.
Height, any opinions there? Any final words?
No, I completely agree that running backs really getting the short end of the stick, but I don't really know what the solution is, because if you change the way the rookie contracts are set up and you front load these contracts, I just think the teams will be disincentivized to draft guys high, and then they'll just kind of they'll fight against it by waiting, letting the guys fall down the draft board, and then to the point where they're able to make it work with their cap, like to draft a guy in the third round.
Yeah, I almost think you have to switch it up such that rookie contracts are, maybe you almost have to have more in based on like production bonus, where you get like a base salary based on where you're drafted, but then you get, based on how you perform, you get additional money that comes into you for performance. That may be kind of what happens eventually, because, like you said, Mike, if running backs are, going to be, let's say they're going to be given a rookie deal that's a higher amount of money than other positions like tight ends or offensive guards or whatever, because it's a known fact that their best years are early on in their career, teams are just going to draft them in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and say, well, we'll just pay you less money and, basically get the same type of production from, a later drafted player. So, yeah, there's got to be some kind of solution. But
That's it for this podcast episode. On the next one, we are going to break down the rest of the 7 teams, which we should probably get within 24 hours of the release of this one, I imagine. Right? All right. Peace out.